We all know the struggle of trying to film perfectly smooth handheld footage. Unless you have a super heavy rig or you've mastered the ninja walk, you're going to end up with some shakes and vibrations. Now, most cameras come with IBIS as standard these days, except for the C50, but even with that, it's sometimes not enough. So what can we do about that? Well, what if I told you there is a super easy and free way to save that shaky footage? One that doesn't involve using traditional tools such as Warp Stabilizer in Premiere Pro. Well, there is, and it's called Gyroflow. Let me show you a quick comparison. Right now, you are looking at two different shots. One shot using my Crane 2S gimbal, and the other is purely handheld. There's a pretty noticeable difference, right? Now, let's stabilize that handheld footage using Gyroflow. They're both so smooth now that it might even be hard to tell the difference. So what is Gyroflow exactly, and how does it work? Well, Gyroflow is a software program that takes your video and perfectly stabilizes it using gyro data recorded by either your camera or an external gyro recorder. This stabilization technology was first popularized in the FPV drone community, where an application called RealSteady was used to stabilize GoPro footage. As a former FPV drone racer and videographer myself, I got to see firsthand how it revolutionized the FPV scene and helped change the hobby into a profession. Later on down the line, Gyroflow came along as a competitor that did pretty much everything RealSteady could and some more. Most importantly, it natively supported footage from just about every camera so long as you had gyro data to go along with it. That's how we ended up where we are now, where we have cameras ranging from the Sony a7 IV all the way to the ARRI Alexa Mini being stabilized with Gyroflow. So why use Gyroflow? Well, it's not the right tool for every scenario. There's going to be times where you want to toss your camera on a gimbal or go purely handheld. When and where you use it should be strategic. So some examples that I can think of are if you are trying to be really lightweight and you have a run and gun setup, say maybe for a vlog, then Gyroflow might be the right choice for you. Additionally, say you shot something out in the field and you thought it was really smooth, and then you brought it back for editing and you realized, man, that's really shaky. Well, Gyroflow might be the right choice there as well. There are some important potential downsides to be aware of when using this software as well. Firstly, as with all digital stabilization tools, it's going to crop your video. Now, it's not going to crop as much as like Warp Stabilizer, for example, because it's using the gyro to do it as efficiently as possible, but it is something to be aware of when you're framing your shots. Additionally, if your footage has a lot of motion blur, then that motion blur is going to transfer into your stabilized footage, meaning that the motion and the blur may not match. To fix this, when you're out in the field, you want to raise your shutter speed to the point where there is very little motion blur. That way it's not noticeable in post. Alright, so I'm interrupting the video real quick to give a brief rundown on how to actually use Gyroflow, because I realized while I was editing that I never actually covered that. So this is what the software looks like after you download and install it. It's a very simple UI, and I'll just drag in a random clip here to show you how to use it. It's very simple again. Once you load in your video, it'll show you the stabilized preview of it, and you can toggle the stabilization using this icon right here. So this is unstabilized, and then stabilized right here. If you haven't used the program before, it'll just load default settings for the stabilization, but since I've used it before, it remembers my previously used ones. And you can also see how the stabilization works by toggling the overview right here. And it shows you a really cool overlay of, how it's moving the video in order to stabilize it. So let's cover the settings on the right side over here. It's, again, very easy. You have the smoothness that goes from 0 to 100%. I recommend keeping it under 30% because I think anything above that is kind of artificial looking. And so I find that, 16 to maybe 30 is where I like to keep it. And on a video that doesn't have a lot of motion like this one, it'll be hard to tell. Even if I move it up to 80%, it doesn't really change much. But if you had a video that was more difficult to correct, then you would definitely notice it. Next, we have lock horizon. I don't recommend using this on a lot of cameras like the a7 IV and the FX30. For some reason, it doesn't really work, and it says to check the motion data settings, but I've tried all the settings there and I really can't get it to work. But if you have like a GoPro, for example, I tested it with the GoPro Hero 8, and it works just fine with that. So it might be something with Sony, maybe. But yeah, again, it's not too important to use it, so yeah. Anyways, next we have dynamic and static zooming. These are the two different options for how it handles the zooming in your video. And I recommend dynamic because it allows you to keep the most field of view in your video.
and it'll, as the name implies, dynamically zoom in when your video gets really shaky, and it can use that zoom to, correct more, and it'll zoom out when your video is more stable. Static zoom will have a continuous zoom. It won't change throughout your video, and it looks more natural. So if you're going for a very professional look, then this is probably what you'll want to use. But yeah, the settings under it are self-explanatory. So you can set a limit for how much it'll zoom. I have it at 118%. And then under that, you have a very cool setting called lens correction. And this will only work if your lens is one of the supported ones inside of Gyroflow. Mine is, it's the Sigma, let's see, we can see it right here, Sigma 18-50. It's the APS-C one. And if I put this to 100%, you can see that the straight lines get a little bit more straight. And so if you're doing real estate or something like that, then this might be very useful for you. But I find that I'd rather keep the field of view than have straight lines, because it's not very noticeable here. These lines are just fine. So yeah, there's that. Under advanced settings, there's only really one that matters, and it's rolling shutter correction. This video doesn't have a lot of rolling shutter issues, so you're not going to notice it even if I have it off. But if you have a video with, actually, I'll just find an example right now. So this is a video right here with some serious rolling shutter issues, and I have stabilization turned off right now, so there's doing no rolling shutter correction, and I'll turn on the stabilization, and you can see that those diagonal lines from the rolling shutter are being fixed by the software. So yeah, it's a very cool feature in this software that's not really available in things like Premiere Pro. Next, we have export settings. You have 4 main ones that I recommend using. There's H.264, H.265, ProRes, and then the DNx HD. These 2 bottom ones you'd use if you're doing intermediary stuff, or you are doing more, polished productions. And then these top 2 are for compressed video, of course. And under that, we have video editor plugins. This is if you want to install plugins that work inside of Premiere Pro or DaVinci. I have the DaVinci one installed, but I don't really like using it. I find that it glitches out a lot, so I don't use it, but it's there if you want to give it a shot. And that's really it for how to use Gyroflow. It's very, very simple, and I'm sure if you just play around with it a little bit, you'll fully understand it.
And that's really it for Gyroflow. It's an amazing tool when used in the right places, but it's not a magical fix for all shaky footage. I hope this video was helpful to you in some way, or at least enjoyable. And if you like it, please hit the like button. And that's it. Have a great day. Bye.